Fat bikes have come a long way over the years, and one bike that I think exemplifies that is this one right here, the one we're going to be taking a look at today, going for a first ride on, and it is the Wyatt Maverick. If you've never heard of Wyatt, I don't necessarily blame you. They're a pretty small company. In fact, when I reached out to them, I was speaking with Wyatt, who is the owner. They're based in Wisconsin here in the US. Another pretty cool thing on that note is that it's all US made. So the aluminum is sourced in the US. Everything is done in the US. Literally, they're making it all there in Wisconsin. It's even got it right here on the frame, so you know, made in USA. They even do their own heat treatment in-house. I had reached out to them, I don't know, 6 months maybe or more ago, and they kept having some delays, some production delays. They were dealing with whoever was doing their heat treatment, it wasn't working out, and so they threw it all together in-house, and they do it in-house now. So pretty cool. I stumbled across them one time just looking at fat bikes. Every once in a while I like to Google, just fat bike or something and see what comes up. And their website came up. And actually at first I thought, wow, that looks a lot like the RSD Mayor. It is kind of similar, aluminum frame. Some of the stuff back here looks pretty similar. But now that I have it in person, no, it's quite a bit different. This is actually a size medium. I do tend to ride larges, but on this one, a medium was definitely a better fit for me. The medium's got a 465 reach, which honestly is probably more in line with mediums of today, very modern mediums. Along with that though, it does have a tall stack. You can tell that immediately. It's got a 649 stack. That's not quite as tall as the Corvus Skookum AF, but much, much taller than my Mayor. And that's one thing that has always been my one complaint with my Mayor. Up front, it's got a 67-degree head tube angle with a 74-degree seat tube. So not incredibly slack or steep on those angles, but for a fat bike, it's right in the range that I really prefer. It's also running a 120 mil Ren fork up here. Wyatt specs all their bikes. You can either get the 120, the 110, or you can actually get Ren's rigid fork on here, which is suspension corrected, a little bit taller than a lot of the fat bike forks out there. I really like the Ren, so I'm excited to have this on here. I've never tried it in the 120. The 120 is adjustable from 120 up to 150. The 110, which I have, is adjustable from 110 down to 80. Another thing that makes this seem a little more cutting edge, a little more modern, is it's not running 175 mil cranks. It's not too far off, it's running 170, but still, some shorter people out there might appreciate that. And I feel like people are just, in the last couple of years, they're starting to realize 175 is probably not right for everyone. It's right for some people, but not necessarily everyone. So they've got a slightly shorter crank on there, as well as this one is spec'd with the Dior XT drivetrain. You can also get it with just the normal Dior, or you can switch over to SRAM if you want to run SRAM GX. So this is the 11 or 10 to 51 tooth with a 30 tooth chainring up front. This really wide gear range is pretty much necessary on a fat bike, both for slow speeds, for low traction situations, but also you've got these big old tires on here, so you need to be geared lower. Speaking of, this is running 26 by 4.8s. These are the Schwalbe Almighties. Never run these before. They look like a good tire, fairly aggressive and big and wide. And then they've got your standard mule foot 80s, of course. Solid wheel set. I understand why they run those on so many different fat bikes, like that it comes stock on those. You don't have to get a 26-inch on here. There's this option, and then they also come with the 27.5 as an option, a 3.8 and a 4.5. So it all depends on what you want, but it is going to run all of those different sizes as well as 29 plus. Back here, chainstay wise, it's adjustable 20 millimeters. Look at all that adjustment right there. So it's 445 in the shortest position, which if you're wondering, you can run a 26 by 4.8 in, but you can adjust it back up to 20 millimeters for more stability, for maybe a 27.5 by 4.5. I don't think you need to go all the way, but I think you can go halfway. So that would be up to 465 is the max at the back. Some of the other options spec'd on mine are the Hayes Dominion A4 brakes. I feel like this is becoming a more popular brake. Several of the bikes I've ridden in the past year have had these on here. It's also got a P&W Loam dropper in a 150. Again, I like P&W's droppers. I feel like they do a really good job. Look at that detail right there. That's pretty cool. But all in all, this is a really good looking bike. I'm really excited to ride it. I feel like it checks a lot of boxes. It's not quite as rowdy looking on paper as the Skookum AF, like I mentioned, but I feel like it's probably struck a really good balance, and it's just gonna be like a bruiser of a bike. It's gonna roll over everything. Yeah, it's just gonna be a fun bike. So let's get out and ride it. Obviously we got some snow, so it's a little different than the last time I rode out here, did this loop, but it's literally basically a dusting, so it's not, I'm pretty much on dirt. Feels super comfortable. These bars are really wide. I think they're 8'10", but with such a tall stack, it doesn't feel so bad. And then they've got a little rise too, I think 25 mils of rise, but really comfortable ride. Just came up some pretty steep stuff, and it was easy to keep the front end down. I didn't even really have to shift my body weight, except probably to get enough power down to keep going. I think I came out a little too hot. Was pretty excited and spiked my heart rate after like 20 seconds. If you're sensitive to Q factor, you might struggle on this. I think that's pretty common on any fat bike that has the 197 spacing in the rear, especially if they want to keep the chainstays shorter at all without having to go mega long. So it's not horrible, but I think if you are sensitive to that, or if you've been riding your mountain bike for a while, you'll notice it right away. I tend to adjust and then I'm fine after even just one ride, but yeah, something to keep in mind. One thing that just helped the Q factor situation was I think my seat was a tad too low. That tends to happen to me, I feel like, where I always have it a little too I can never keep my train of thought on this. I always have it a tad too low at first. I don't know why. I'm always off just a tiny bit. So that helped quite a bit, but I mean, it's still wide. This bike, I think in a medium, weighs in at 35 pounds. If you took the tubes out, drop it a little. 35 is on the heavier side, but it's actually not bad, especially with an aluminum frame and a 120 fork. Like, it's still decent. One thing I love about the Ren fork is the lockout is so good. It's like literally you have a rigid fork as soon as you lock it out. It's heavier, yes, but if you're wanting something that fully locks out, the Ren does it. More than the Mastodon, more than the Bluto, especially the Bluto. If you want something that locks out, you don't want to switch to a rigid fork in the winter, and you don't want suspension, it's a good one. These tires are good. No slippage so far. Whew. I feel right at home on this bike. It's not too extreme on either end. I just feel comfortable. Got a lot of travel, and yeah, it feels really good. It's a fun bike. It's playful. It's not hard to throw around. I mean, it's heavy, and it's not like it's something with a ultra short chainstay so you can wheelie super easy, but you've got a high stack, so it's really up here and it makes it easy to pull the bike. Man, I'm just connecting with this bike. I've said that before. Some bikes you just click with, and this is one of them. Let's get into the single track descent. Took that a little too far. Like, that was fun, but oops. I might need to adjust the pressure in this fork. Woo, this is fun though. Hitting some stuff I don't usually. Seeking them out, that means I'm comfortable at speed. Enough that I'm not having to focus so much on what I'm doing and able to look for stuff to hit as like a, I guess like a bonus line. Woo, that was a little rough. Oh yeah. Whew. That's not a huge drop or anything right there. In fact, you can roll it, but it's kind of tricky because of the way some of the rocks are. I haven't hit that on the last 3 bikes I've tested, so that should tell you something. Wow, what a fun ride. Whew. You tell I had a good time when I have to take the glasses off because they're fogged up. Yeah, so I'm gonna keep this kind of brief. I talked a lot on this, and the whole point of these first rides is to get a sense for how the bike feels and to help you understand, is this a bike you're even interested in? Because everything looks one way on paper, and you know, the geometry, you might think something, but once it all comes together, it's a totally different thing. And even the build's important. With this Wyatt Maverick, I am very impressed. My first impression is if you're looking for something that's gonna be a ton of fun as a fat bike, this checks pretty much all those boxes. Really fun. It runs a 120 mil fork, which is longer than many fat bikes out there. It's got pretty modern geometry, but it's not so modern or so extreme. And following the mountain bike trends, it still remembers that it's a fat bike and it's got to do well in the snow and in slower conditions. And I can't tell you for sure that's how it's gonna be. I try to do it on this loop for a reason where there's some flatter, longer climbs and you're just kind of going slow, but we'll see as things get deeper and, you know, I'm riding on some groomed trails and things like that. Like I said, this is a bike that I just kind of click with. I don't know if it's because it's pretty similar to the Mare in some aspects, the head tube angle, the seat tube angle, even the chainstay where it's at right now. And its shortest position is 10 mils longer than the Mare, but I run the Mare slightly back anyway because of the tires I'm running on it. The reach also actually is really close between this. It's off by like 1 millimeter, but the stack is much taller, and that's one thing that I really like. A taller stack is pretty life-changing. It just puts you in a more comfortable position. You feel a little more in control when things are getting more technical and fast. Well done, Wyatt, is what I'll say right now. But if you want to see the long-term review, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.